coach after hitting Umaga with a chair. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I was even watching Monday Night Raw at that point. I was kind of turned off by the product, so to speak. Some of the notes I do have on that right now are several members of the Miami Heat were in attendance, including Shaquille O'Neal. That was a big deal. And I guess Todd Grisham had the big interview of the night, interviewing Kenny Dykstra backstage regarding Ric Flair and extending his hand to him 2 weeks prior, with Kenny saying death comes in fours. James Brown, President Ford, Saddam Hussein, in Ric Flair's career. So that's the highlight of that night on Raw back in 2007. Honestly, that was a tough time for the WWE, I think, coming out of the Attitude Era. They didn't go public with their stock yet. They were still trying to rebrand themselves as a family-orientated company and so forth. And I don't know. What about you guys? Do you guys, Bruce, this is probably your time, right? You were watching back in 07?
No, this is when they were, I was in my mid-20s, and no, they were pushing me away. I didn't want to watch kid-friendly TV. I was running the other way. They were trying to go back to PG, and in my own opinion, they were trying to cultivate the fans for now, so they can go back to that little bit more edgier product. You know, I look at WWF when I was a kid, and they took the rock and wrestling connection with the kids and cultivated us into that early '90s era, and then they took and then into the Attitude Era, and then they did the same thing in the with that new generation era into the Attitude Era. And it seemed like at that point they were doing the same thing. Cultivating their next generation of fans and hoping some of us would stay on and, in the long run, come back to them.
The loyalty factor, that's what they were betting on. And I think their ratings weren't too great back then either. No. I mean, then again, they were the only game in town, right? ECW already folded up shop.
Oh, come on. You had TNA, didn't you?
Yeah, TNA was around. That's right. Yeah, but hey, if you could find them, whatever network they were on. They had a weird time slot as well. So I don't know. I don't know if it was my kids were in sports and all that stuff. It wasn't really happening. I don't think I rebirthed with everything until probably about 2011, 2012 when Daniel Bryan and the Yes Movement came back in. So
I didn't start watching again until Punk came around.
Yeah, that's probably right at the same time. Yeah. Right about that time.
The one thing I just have to disagree with you on is, you had the match of the year candidate there with Kevin Federline and John Cena. I don't know what you were talking about.
Is he even still relevant? I mean, was he even relevant then outside of the fact that were they still married then? Because didn't she have like her meltdown and shave her head and all that stuff and go off the deep end?
Yeah, that was like around that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like all around that time. It was like they were trying to stay relevant, and they throw Kevin Federline in the. This is what I don't know. This is like Vince McMahon just trying to throw everything at us and see if something stuck. And to me, it didn't, because I wasn't really watching it loyal like I was. But
is he going to resurface now and say he's undefeated?
Yeah.
Well, let's just get away from that one.
Yeah, please.
Let's fast forward to 2022 when WWE presents Day One, and in the main event, Brock Lesnar recaptures the WWE Championship in a fatal 5-way match, which included Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, and the defending champion Big E. In my own opinion, I'm a little disappointed that Big E didn't get a longer title reign, and really, really sad that he's been on the shelf. And honestly, it's still up in the air whether he's ever gonna make a comeback, and that's pretty sad because I think that guy had a great career ahead of him.
I love Big E. How can you not love Big E?
Oh, great personality. Just that whole. He had the look. He could talk, but
yeah.
Everybody who was in this match is still relevant today. And let's face it, Brock Lesnar, in 10 years, he could walk in any arena and claim the championship and kick 90% of the roster's ass. So, I have a feeling that he's going to be relevant, even though he's reaching his late 40s, he's going to be relevant for a long time. Even as it becomes more frequent between his appearances. But that guy's always going to be a monster.
I know last night on the 30, I was flagged with that question. It totally took me off guard. And this is the magic of the 30. You're either ready or you're not. Those are two men that slipped my mind that I think may come back in the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar being one of them, and Big E. He's been quiet lately, if you've noticed.
Right.
He gives us updates and all that stuff. I think they're keeping him, and that'll be a big surprise. Big E coming back in the Royal Rumble, because I could see it. From what I heard, he's active. He's been seen around WWE backstage and all that stuff. You never know. But Brock Lesnar, I would definitely say he comes back in the Royal Rumble. I mean, this is going to be a Royal Rumble for the record books, I think, coming up. I think they're going to blow the roof off Trop Field or wherever they're at in Florida. They're going to blow the roof off. Yeah, so they're definitely going to do something with that. So
when you look at it, you can pretty much predict who's going to be in the end. But the reality is, you have so many other names you could write in there this year.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the free agent market's big. That's another thing too. Those free agents that all their contracts expired, they might come back. The one-off thing. Carlito a couple of years ago came out of the Rumble. Look at him now; he's back. This is where you got to fill that roster for one night of 30 men, of 30 recognizable talents. And this is the way to do it. And WWE is really good at that. So
very good.
Yep.
Awesome.
Who knows?
So, all right. Looks like we're going to head back over towards Benny's way.
Oh, God. Get this one out of the way. January 2nd, 2003, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Al Wilson. Father.
Oh, man.
Al Wilson didn't he do that, Joe, that song Show and Tell? In 1974, that was a great song.
Is that Al Wilson? Is that his name? Show and Tell.
Yeah,
the name of the game.
There you go. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the good Al Wilson. This was the shitty Al Wilson. Father of Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie. She was
Was it her real father?
Yeah, it was a real father.
Really? Oh, God.
Yeah, they got married on an episode of SmackDown. This wedding is very memorable for the fact that they got married in their underwear.
Yeah.
And there was no run-in. The one time you would want to run in, and there was none. But
yeah,
didn't he have like a fake heart attack?
I want to say something happened on the honeymoon.
Yeah,
something happened on the honeymoon.
That might have been. Yeah, I mean, if anybody out there in the chat room could, because I really wasn't. I occasionally watched at this point.
Well, my son. This is really good Attitude Era, kind of like they were still trying to keep us hanging on. I want to say Dawn Marie got involved or something like that. Wasn't there something like an affair or something like that, or some kind of craziness that happened there? There's something weird happened then.
But it was Wilson, Al Wilson, and Dawn Marie was the.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So they went to consummate the marriage, and he had a heart attack.
That's what it was.
That's what it was on the honeymoon. Okay.
Shame on him. Should have kept himself in shape.
So I think
that's one of many horrible angles that they did at that time.
They were just trying to keep us hanging on. That's what it was. They just kept trying and pushing and pushing.
That was right around the time of Katie Vick, wasn't it? Or close?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right
it's getting close. I think Katie Vick was a little after this, but you could tell the writing they were just trying anything at that point. And fortunately, I don't really remember that episode, but I probably watched it. But I think it might be I tuned it out on purpose.
Yeah. There you go.
Maria's asking a good question in the chat room. What if Rock versus Roman Reigns? Who would you want to win? Who do you think would win? That's a tough one.
Well, that's a good question because again, going back to the 30 last night, we had some people in the chat were saying that Roman could possibly lose the title before Mania.
I said that was my
LA Knight.
Was that he'd lose it before.
So this would be more of a head of a table match. But if this match stays in play and it's for the title, something tells me that it's going to be a passing of the torch type match because I don't think The Rock has done that yet, that type of match.
He has not.
You always have that passing of the torch type match. If it's for the title and this is main evented on the Sunday night, I mean, because if The Rock wins the title, what's going to happen now? I mean, you're just going to take all the investment that you have with Roman Reigns and just throw it out the window.
Right. And Rock's going to forfeit the title anyway.
Right. And he's not coming back full time. So this could be a passing of the torch if Reigns keeps the title. That's what I'm saying. Because if he doesn't and he loses it to LA Knight or whoever they see fit, so does this turn into a head of a table match? You got all the Samoans around the ring. You got every single Fatu and Hanoi that imaginable comes to this match. Does it turn into that type of match? Because if it doesn't, it stays a title match. I think it turns into a passing of the torch type match.
Okay. One of the things I'd like to see.
Rock? Is he like 50, 51?
He's
Rock's up there.
50-ish. He's a
50, couple of years younger than me. So yeah. Yep.
But one of the things I'd like to see is I'd like to see The Rock come back and honestly let him take the title because I think they've learned right now first of all, The Rock's probably appeared on WWE programming as much as Roman Reigns has in the last year. Let's face it. It's yep. So what would be the difference in putting the title on The Rock at this point? I think the WWE has learned a lesson with Logan Paul on the publicity that the U.S. title has now gotten with an entire new demographic and new audience by putting it on Logan Paul. Logan Paul has not shied away from bringing that thing everywhere he goes, and is proud to keep showing it off. And it's brought the WWE a whole demographic they would have never had. That whole cutting edge young people out there. So and the women love him. So
yeah. So I mean, like you said, if he has the title, I think it'll be a passing of the torch type thing. If not, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't see Reigns losing the title, but it'd be a good little segue to Mania. Will Reigns even be wrestling after the Rumble? I mean, I know tonight there's a 3-way match between Knight, Orton, and AJ Styles, and the winner faces Reigns at Rumble. So, take your pick. If LA Knight does win the title, does Reigns win it back before Mania, or does he go to Mania with the head of the table type match? So,
what about The Rock taking the title at Mania? And now we've got a whole new build up towards SummerSlam.
Yeah, but does The Rock keep the title, though? That's the problem. I mean, is he going to come back? Is he going to stay with the WWE for 1 year and, be like a Roman Reigns champion, appear once a month on SmackDown and a couple of premium live events? I don't know. It's a good question, Bruce.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people didn't realize is a lot of the times when Roman has actually appeared on Raw or on Raw and SmackDown, a lot of those things have been pre-taped, and people think that it's live. It's not, guys. It's been pre-taped. No. The only time he's actually in the building is when you actually see him come out to the ring. All those other times it's pre-taped. So
of course.
He's only been there a handful of times in the past year.
Yeah. And I think now with the heightened awareness of him not defending his title, not being on TV a lot, I think that's a strategic plan by the WWE, because maybe come now after or towards the Rumble and after that, we will get our dose of Roman Reigns weekly or bi-weekly, or even, cross appearances on Raw or even NXT or something like that. So hopefully they're going to listen to the fans, because I don't think Triple H is a big fan of his champion, Universal Champion, not being on the flagship shows. I mean, I know Vince, this might have been Vince's idea for all I know, but you're the Universal Champion. You're the face of SmackDown, which, by the way, we all know is now moving to the USA Network of October of this year. They paid $1.4 billion for it. So they sticking it to the USA Network of a Fox network right now because of that. Who knows? I don't know. But I think we're going to get a good dose of Roman Reigns between now and hopefully Mania once the Rumble takes place.
Oh, sounds good. Listen, let's take one more subject and then we'll move on to a quick commercial break. So on January 2nd, 2008, an agreement is reached for the distribution of Chris Benoit's estate. Wow. So the estate was to be divided equally between Chris's 2 children from a previous marriage and the family of Nancy Benoit. The value of the estate was estimated to be between $1.5 and $3 million. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it was worth so little, especially with the contracts he signed in the latter years of his career. But yeah, what a sad, tragic case. I mean, it's not something that's fun to talk about, but yeah, Benoit was an unhealthy individual. They do blame it on the concussions and the CTE, but the reality is we know millions of other athletes that have had CTE, and they did not kill their families. They did not kill their kid. They didn't murder their son and murder their wife and then commit suicide. Yeah. This man honestly was a sick individual. He had some serious health and mental issues, and as great of a wrestler as he is, his legacy will forever be tarnished.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, he was, to me, a phenomenal wrestler. He came in at that time with Conan and all those guys, Rey Mysterio. I remember, what was it? What were they called with Dean Malenko and them? They showed up on SmackDown and sat in the front row.
Oh, yeah.
They were part of that, that group. And, of course, him and Eddie Guerrero and all that stuff, close friends. But, yeah, the CTE, steroid use, the drug use, shocking. I mean, my overall memory of that is that Monday Night Raw, when they did a tribute show to Benoit. And literally during that show, they had to stop showing everything because it came to light that it was a murder-suicide, and they just couldn't go on anymore. I remember Vince being in the empty arena. It was just a weird, one of those things is, the internet wasn't as relevant as it is now. It was pretty much starting out back then, so to speak. But you were like, is this a work? Is this real? But you knew it was real because you had access to news sites and all that stuff, and you knew what was going on. And here it is on the USA Network, and Vince is talking about, oh, Benoit is a great man, blah, blah, blah. Then they find out, I think it was an hour into it, after the 9 o'clock hour, the 10 o'clock hour, that they had to stop everything. And, it was found out that it was a murder-suicide. It was just a horrible time for wrestling back then. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, the argument to this day goes on. I see it all over the dirt sheets and everywhere else. Should Benoit be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Based on everybody else who's been in there and who's incarcerated or has done some bad work on the side. But I don't know. This is a sensitive subject. This is real life. I mean, three lives were brutally murdered at that time. Benoit included. But it was a sad time for wrestling then.
Definitely a black eye, and the jumping the gun to doing that memorial the next day, and that was that was kind of cringy at the as we learned. We had the internet, we knew what was going on. We kind of saw what was happening during that day, and it was definitely a black eye on wrestling.
Little Patty over there says that no one can take away Chris's ability in the ring. No, you can't argue that. He was an outstanding performer. There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, his legacy now will be what happened outside the ring. And that's unfortunate.
My comment as far as that goes is Charles Manson actually was a very good musician. But, I mean, I'm not going to remember him as that, right? I mean, no, he was. True. I mean, he actually wrote a song that the Beach Boys used as one of their B-sides for one of their singles.
And was it? No, okay.
no, I can't think of the name of it now. But I mean, I've heard his singing, very, very good, very talented. But I don't get the guy's a murderer.
Yeah. I mean, he's legitimate, psychotic. So,
did you read all that stuff where he was involved in the MK Ultra and with the CIA, and that's why he kept getting out of jail, was because they had actually been doing experiments on him? It's crazy. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He was involved with those. Go figure, involved with those LSD experiments and all that stuff back then.
That was Whitey Bulger too, wasn't it, Joe? I think Whitey Bulger.
I'm on the same page as you, Benny. I think your next true crime is going to have to be something about Charles Manson.
We did that one already. That was
you did. Okay.
Yeah, we did Helter Skelter. No, Whitey Bulger apparently his first stint in prison volunteered for an experiment where they used LSD on him, and I think. For the rest of his life, he had problems sleeping and stuff like that.
Yeah. You got to watch the movie Black Mass.
Yeah, there's records of CIA agents going in and visiting Manson, which I was floored on. I actually think I first heard it on the Joe Rogan Experience, and then you go down those holes and start researching stuff, and conspiracy left, conspiracy right. So, right. But listen,
Little Patty's saying his private life should be put aside, I guess. He was a great wrestler. Yeah, but you know what? He killed his family. You can't get past that. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, though. Listen, here's what I got to say, though. Karl Malone. Karl Malone is a piece of shit. I don't know if you know the history of him with him.
The mailman?
Yeah,
talk about the mailman?
The mailman. Oh, look at his personal life. He knocked up a 13-year-old girl when he was in college, and then it denied that he was the father up until the kid was an adult. And at that point, he said, "Listen, you're too old for me to have a relationship with you." But we don't talk about that with him because we celebrate him. So I get the separation, but there's a lot of athletes that have done a lot of heinous acts out there that we overlook because of their celebrity. And Benoit, unfortunately, is fortunately not one of them. But I get where Little Pat's coming from because it happens very, very frequently.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I understand where she's coming at. I agree. If you're going to put him in the Hall of Fame as a wrestler, an all-around technical wrestler, first ballot nominee all the way.
Right.
Unfortunately, the public perception of all this is you hear Chris Benoit, you don't hear great in-ring technician anymore. You hear a guy who killed his kid. I mean, the way he killed him, he wrapped the cord around, the band from the weightlifting machine, killed his wife, then turned the gun on himself. That's what you hear now, and it's unfortunate. I agree. He was a great technical wrestler. Don't get me wrong. This guy could perform. He did it. He was world champion. He carried the company. He was the face of the company for a while. I don't know if it's a generational thing. It's like who shot JFK. Now we know now we know who was involved, but it's a generational thing,
right?
It's here we are 60 years later talking about JFK, and we all knew growing up there was a conspiracy theory, but now it's come to fruition that there really was either another shooter or somebody else on the inside was involved. But unfortunately, this is where we're at with the Chris Benoit thing. Maybe 25 years from now, when they find out that CTE was much worse than we think it is now, or whatever. It's just, I don't know if they need a good PR thing or whatever. I agree. Chris Benoit, great technical wrestler. He was an entertainer. He was good at what he did. Don't get me wrong. It's just public perception now. Everyone's going to remember him as to what happened in his personal life, and that's tragic. Well, that is a tragedy.
And Loose Cannon in the chat room has a good analogy. O.J. Simpson was a great running back, but he lopped two people's heads off.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we can go on. We could do this all night.
Oh yeah, after this could be like the next 10 shows.
So listen, guys, we got to take a quick break. We're about 40 minutes into this, so we'll be right back.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite 4-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Tired of that same old breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Same old tasting scrambled eggs, burger, that dinner steak, ribs, or pork chops? Why not add a little bit of spice or just a touch of heat to make the difference? Change that scrambled egg with a little bit of Johnny Fabulous's John Cena Sr.'s $1 Million Jalapeno Hot Sauce. Great on burgers, steaks, chops, and those barbecued ribs.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Wrestling Remembered. I'm What a Day Joe Lowry, along with our co-host, Benny the Playa Scala. And, of course, Bruce Butler controlling the engine room there. He's trying to steer the ship right today for us. So we're talking Wrestling Remembered, of course. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. To see everybody in the chat here. We just had a lively discussion on the Chris Benoit situation and so forth. So we're going to segue that into, we're going to take it back to January 2nd, 2009, Washington, D.C. We're going to get a little political on everybody now, but the Congressional Oversight Committee's report on the use of steroids was filed with the Office of the National Drug Control Policy. The letter, which was filed by Senator Henry Waxman, states that 40% of WWE talent tested positive for steroids and other banned substances. 23% of TNA, actually 25% of TNA talent tested positive for steroids or other banned substances as well. Chris Benoit tested positive 3 times prior to his June 06 murder-suicide of his family. Nothing came from this investigation. And the 2 main reasons I found out that probably nothing came from this was Henry Waxman, the senator who was leading the investigation and all that, was chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He actually switched committees right in the middle of all this, believe it or not. And things got filed. Certain senators didn't want to touch it. But I do believe the second asterisk here might have something to do with Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon. announced her run for Senate. And by the time this all came about, this thing was basically squashed before it went anywhere. They were asked about it. They were always being referred to somewhere else, or somebody else who used to be involved with the hearing were no longer involved with the hearing. So this was a lot of political fanfare and so forth, and a lot of I don't know if it was the justification thing for the WWE and so forth, but something tells me that the McMahons, politics, stepping in the political arena, this had a lot to do with it, I think. Because, like we said, nothing came from this typical government stuff, right? You spend years researching this stuff. But guys, if I get your opinion on this, what do you think about these numbers of 40%? Now, we're going back to 2009, well after the steroid scandal of Vince McMahon. 40% of WWE talent tested positive for steroids and other banned substances. 25% of TNA talent tested positive for steroids and other banned substances. It's always a big thing in wrestling locker rooms that there's always something to give guys that extra, or women that extra jump in their step, or that extra height in their drop kick and all that stuff. I'll kick it off with you, Benny. What do you think of those numbers at that time, post the Vince McMahon steroid Hulk Hogan era?
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand that these guys are under tremendous pressure for how they look. I mean, this is not Kansas City in 1981 where you have Bulldog Bob Brown, who looked like, somebody took his bowling shirt off from the Wednesday Night Beer League and put him in a ring. I mean, these guys, they had to look jacked. And I mean, as somebody who's lifted weights since 1988, and I wish Phil was here to chime in, but
yeah,
you can only do so much in the gym. I don't care how dedicated you are. Yeah. Now in my case, what I do in the gym is perfectly okay. That's all I need. But I'm not I'm not in a ring every Friday night or every Monday night. So
right.
You need that little extra bump. I mean, steroids in bodybuilding have been predominant for years and years and years, and it's one of those things where it just seems everybody looks the other way, until you have something like a Benoit where, he tested positive, and not only did he test positive, I think he was like off the charts.
Oh yeah. Like it was, the metabolic steroids were like through the roof. I think that was in his bloodstream, for God's sakes.
Right.
Bruce, chime in on here. What do you think of those numbers?
Okay. 40%. All right,
40%.
I'm actually surprised that it is so low. We have to take a look at steroids over the generations, though. Back in the 80s and the 70s, we had anabolic steroids that really, really were horrible to the body, and you saw the results to the livers and the other organs later on in life. Fortunately, steroids have evolved, and some of them, there's almost like kind of a gray area between stuff that's good for you, almost really good for you at this point. It's gotten to be a gray area. At that point, that's when it really was a gray area. Yes, they're performance enhancing, and they did it for the bodies and stuff. But I'm surprised more people weren't doing that. Look at the physiques that were expected. People were expected to have. It's hard to get there. Plus the performance every day. People just say, think steroids for just for the look, but don't forget they're also there for the recovery. So that's another aspect of it. So. Under doctors' guidelines, I know lots of people that have used steroids in very, very positive manners. So it's a gray area. 40%. I mean, let's look at what the expectation of the WWE wrestler was. So I can see that definitely being a higher level. Now, what I want to know is what the actual rates of other drug use was. The somas, the painkillers, all those other things.
The banned substances were right there too. Because if you notice, when the report comes out, it was, 40% were on steroids. It wasn't a banned substance. They were all doing it. But what shocked me about this whole thing was after the Vince McMahon steroid scandal, Vince McMahon almost went to jail.
Right.
He was looking at 25 years plus. And to go ahead and play with this type of fire, especially in your organization, and we're talking 2009. We're not talking 92, 93, 94 and all that stuff. We're talking 2009. We all know we've already lost Mr. Perfect, all those guys. Everybody died. That one gym in Tampa, I think, Benny, we were talking about that one time where they had the same steroid use and all those wrestlers died. I know Mr. Perfect was one of them. I think Road Warrior Animal or whatever, Hawk was one of them as well. But we're talking 09 now. This is years later when everybody knows they're on juice and all that stuff. Why would they even play with that? That's the thing. And he's trying to go public at this time. I think they were starting to do their IPO, or at least a couple of years later. Why would you even mess with that? Even trying? That's what perplexed me with all this. And I think that political aspect of it with the Congressional Oversight Committee and them finding those stats and then it going nowhere. And then Linda McMahon trying to step into the political arena. And then, of course, a few years later, the WWE goes public with their stocks. Something, this is behind the scenes stuff here. It's shocking to me when you think about it.
And of course, it's not just restricted to wrestling. Look at baseball. Look what happened when Jose Canseco, said that these guys were on steroids. Everybody really they ganged up on him. But as it turns out, everything he said was true.
Of course. And Roger Clemens still lied. He won't get into the Hall of Fame because of it. Mark McGuire didn't lie, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So it's
one of the worst.
Because like a guy like guys like McGuire, guys like Bonds, guys like A-Rod, that they would have even without the the PEDs, they would have made the Hall of Fame, and now they're not going to make it, which is it's sad.
The one that really what was shocking was when Lance Armstrong and when he came out, and especially as he had ruined all those other bikers' careers that were trying to come out against him. He ruined their careers, and then it comes out years later that he was a supplier. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. And Joe Will's got some comments here too.
Oh yeah, look at that.
He's 60 years old, been working out since the 80s, never used performing-enhancing drugs, and don't require medication. All kudos to you, Joe Will. And yes, steroids have been around since the 50s. Look up Alvin Roy. He was the first NFL strength conditioning coach for the Chargers. He first used them in the 60s. It's when, and Joe Myers even chiming in, gladiators and Greeks used performance enhancers and it was totally acceptable. They called it doping, given the Dutch influence with the dope of choice. Wow. So imagine that. So this has been something that's been around way before my time, your time, and wrestling's time, it looks like.
Well, so it's always been whatever for the advantage. I mean, what was it? It was the speed with baseball in the 70s. I'm sure before that there was something else that they were using to get an advantage. So there's always going to be somebody who's going to push the limits and the boundaries of what they can do in order to get the edge.
Well, I'm old enough to have read a book called Ball 4, which was written by Jim Bouton, who pitched for the Yankees in the early 60s and then had a long career, went up with the Atlanta Braves in the late 70s as a knuckleball pitcher. But his book was revolutionary because it exposed baseball. There was like that long, kind of the kayfabe thing that, whatever was in the locker room, whatever went on, it stayed there.
In the locker room,
and he peeled the curtain back and, had stories about Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle going out drinking and, Mickey looking at, at women, having sex, you name it. And, but like things aren't the way that things are so much different, I think, than we really think they are. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, like I said, I remember growing up, they said, the old joke was, what do you call a Dallas Cowboys huddle? A drug ring. Right. It's like all those stories come out actually doing drugs in the huddle. It's like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane though.
I agree with Loose Cannon. Loose McGuire is not in. And I agree that Andy Pettitte should be in. I hope he gets in.
Yeah. Pettitte should be in now. That's shocking. Okay. Wow. And Joe Will remembers, I don't remember Bouton pitching for the Braves. Maybe he did. Phil Niekro was our knuckleballer.
Yeah. Bouton came his last, I think it was 78 or 79. Ted Turner brought him back from the minor leagues, and he ended his career with the Braves. Not very well, though.
Yeah. All right, who's up next?
Oh, looks like Benny's back.
Here we go. All right,
Benny.
So January 3rd, 1952. This is kind of odd. In Fort Bragg, California, because when you think of this guy, you think of a completely different state. But James William Ross is born, and known in the wrestling world as Good Old JR.
Good old JR.
Ross is often cited as one of the greatest announcers of all time. And he first started as a referee in Mid-South. His career spanned nearly a half century. He's currently employed with AEW, where now this is my opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to get maybe some flack in the chat room. I think he's tarnishing his legacy, and I'm gonna quote a specific or cite a specific example. They were in Chicago, and what the hell is that guy's name? Orange Cassidy Pockets is wrestling with his hands in his pockets and kicking somebody in the shins. And JR said, "Forget about Dick the Bruiser." And the minute he said that, it's like, no, I'm not going to forget about Dick the Bruiser. And the first thing I thought about was, what if Dick the Bruiser came in and came into the ring and some idiot was wrestling with his hands in his pockets and he kicked Bruiser in the shins? What would have happened to that guy?
He'd be dead.
Yeah, thank you. Or Bruiser Brody. He would have ended the guy.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, I love JR. Like, I love old JR. I love WCW JR. I love, WWE JR, Mid-South JR. I do not love AEW JR.
Yeah, my fondest memory, of course, is him coming to the WWE, him and Lawler, doing the pay-per-views, and the Hell in the Cell with Mankind being thrown off by the Undertaker, and I just remember him. He made it sound like he broke script and said, "Will somebody get off their damn ass in the back and come out and help this guy, or call somebody, or whatever?" It sounded real. Like
that was classic. Excellent announcing. Yes,
that sold it for me. I'm like, you're gonna have that because you need that. And JR for many years was that guy.
Yeah.
Whether age and health issues now have caught up to him, maybe some of the he's not as restricted on AEW, so you get the Dick the Bruiser comments and stuff like that. But 50 plus years in the business, maybe it's just time to, sit back and enjoy the high life, I guess. You know what I mean? Maybe it's time.
Maria, I agree with you that the Steelers will beat the Ravens tomorrow. That's my prediction.
So with JR, I've been actually going back and watching on the Peacock Network some of the old matches from like Georgia Championship Wrestling and all the other old Southern promotions and stuff. And it was JR was nobody. He was just a behind the scenes guy. Gordon was the main guy. So
right.
Yep.
It was so funny to watch. I'm seeing this young JR. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the other funny part is being a WWF golden era person with the Hulk Hogan. Basically, all the guys that I end up watching the WWF in that golden age, they were all down, and how much interaction they had previously, and yet they never knew each other before. It's just funny to go back and watch all that stuff.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So
the number one playmate is in the house, Benny.
Oh, all right. Beth's in the house.
Welcome. In the house.
So
fan favorite, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So
great supporter of the show. Always here.
Let's fast forward into the year 2000 and Miami. Let's see. It's Miami, Florida. WWE presents Monday Night Raw at the American Airlines Arena. On that night, Stephanie McMahon declares Chris Benoit and Chyna co-intercontinental champions with a stipulation that they must defend it separately, and if one loses, they both lose the title. Sheer brilliance. Nice. So, you gotta laugh. I mean, Chyna didn't belong in there with the guys, even though she wanted to be in there. I think she would have been the most dominant women's heavyweight champion ever, and should have been booked in that way.
Definitely. She was Rhea Ripley before her time,
and she was huge compared to Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley's only 5'7". Chyna was a legit 5'10" and solid. She was
solid.
So I was, unfortunately, the wrestlers kind of have shrunk in the last few years. But what a concept! And then they ended up fighting for the title at Armageddon when Chris Benoit ended up taking the title. But Chyna was that first female women's intercontinental champion, and honestly, I don't think we should go down that route again. We're having enough issues with.
I'm not a fan of intergender. I'm sorry. Maybe
what was that match? Didn't she have like a Good Housekeeping match?
Yes, that was the one where she won the title from Jeff Jarrett.
I'm doing this by memory. I'm not looking this up.
Literally, there was a vacuum cleaner in the ring.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, look at the size of this woman with a vacuum cleaner. I'm like, this does not look right. But, obviously it's a Vince McMahon idea, I would have to assume, because he's always in control of everything. But again, I know we don't want to go down that road. I still say she belongs in the Hall of Fame by herself just for being the only woman intercontinental champion. I mean, you can't take that away. I mean, that's on paper. That's lodged in the record books.
No, there's no reason she shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
My comment is not all the sucking was done by the vacuum cleaner.
All right. One night in China.
There you go.
I love those signs. I was in China once or something like that. I mean, it was just nuts. It was crazy, but whatever.
China rhymes with a certain body part, just coincidentally, right?
I'm surprised they didn't use that for a title of one. There you go,
Right?
Benny.
Oh,
Man, you lost the marketing opportunity.
Yeah, their oversight. Should have hired the player.
All right, looks like I'm up again, right? All right. January 4th, 1999, and what is seen by many as the key turning point in the Monday Night Wars. Hulk Hogan defeated Kevin Nash via the finger poke to the chest. That's right, to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on Monday Nitro. Over on the other dial, Monday Night Raw was previously recorded. I know we talked about this last week, which showed a match between Mankind defeating The Rock to win the WWF Championship, which was in Worcester, Mass, by the way. The result of this match was leaked by WCW announcer Tony Schiavone, Schiavo, causing approximately 600,000 viewers. Yes, folks, 600,000 viewers to get up, push that remote, and if you're in my house back then, you turn the dial from Nitro to Raw. WCW never claimed another ratings victory again and was pretty much out of business 2 years later. As we all know, Vince McMahon bought them. I know we talked about this last week, but the Mankind Rock match was taped the week prior because back then they taped Raw one night. They were live one night, taped it the next to show the following week. Of course, I do believe this is one of the last pre-recorded Raws because, like I said, what happened after that, they went on to rating success after that. It's basically what they did. They went on to rating success. My biggest thing here was why the stunt that was pulled. I want to say, obviously, it was Eric Bischoff's doing to have Tony Schiavone announce that. Because why would you even break kayfabe like that? I know the wars were that tight back then, but why would you want to ruin if everybody else, especially now in your own company? I mean, they committed suicide basically doing that, and
they
I don't know.
missed so many opportunities. My favorite opportunity
that they you're ahead. Shut your mouth. Just let your own product do the talking for you.
Did you guys? And by the way, real quickly, the Nitro was held at the Georgia Dome. This thing was hyped up for weeks. They had over 40,000 fans paid attendance leading up to this night. It was a big deal in Georgia that night. And to pull this kind of stunt, it was catastrophic.
So the funny part is if that happened nowadays, you would have also had 40,000 fans in attendance looking at their cell phones.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah, that's a good one, huh?
So, but that is absolutely crazy. But one of my favorite stories of that era was when you had DX go to Nitro and they wouldn't open the doors. But then years later, the interview with Vince McMahon said, well, or when they asked Vince McMahon, what would you have done if they had done that same thing to you? He said, I'd have opened the freaking doors. I would have had the highest ratings right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. That was the Norfolk Scope, I do believe, right? They went to
I believe you're right.
in Virginia. Yep. That was a great stunt. I loved it. I'm shocked. I am shocked why Bischoff would not open the door. I mean, that would have been monumental.
That must see TV and then some. You would have been on both networks simultaneously.
Something like that could very well have changed the landscape of wrestling for both companies.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't know if that door opens. Let's think about that. That could be a whole show topic right there.
Yeah, what if? Like, what if he opened the door?
What if that door opened? Is that the forbidden door they're talking about now?
Nice. So listen, let's fast forward to 2010. Hell freezes over as Bret Hart makes his first appearance in a WWE ring since the infamous Montreal Screwjob 12 years earlier. Bret buries the long-standing grudge with arch rival Shawn Michaels in what is regarded as one of the most emotional segments in Raw history. Blah, blah, blah. So, sorry, I mean, I think it might have been part of me thinks they had buried the hatchet long before that. Bret needed
we all know it's been confirmed it's a work, right? The screw job was a work. That's been confirmed.
Well, some people say it is. Some people still deny it. But
I'm telling you, I still think it's a work.
I absolutely think it's a work.
I think it is.
Vince McMahon is not that stupid. He definitely would not have let Bret get to that point with that title. Right. But at the same time, let's face it. At this point, Brett needed the WWF or WWE. The WWE did not need Brett. Brett was nobody.
Right.
WWE was building longer range stars. This is an opportunity for Brett to make some extra money, getting into a Legends contract.
Hall of Fame. Yep. All that.
That's about it. That's all it was. WWF did not need him. He needed them.
Yeah. I genuinely think that the Hart family, especially Stu when he was alive, they weren't big fans of Vince's style of wrestling and his approach. Obviously, they're old school, the dungeon, all that stuff. But they couldn't. I think money spoke volumes to them, so they put aside that pride thing with the wrestling to because I remember Stu Hart was at ringside for something, and I'm like, wow, Stu Hart's actually at ringside for a WWE event. That's crazy. Like, similar to Vern Gagne. Vern Gagne wanted to kill Vince McMahon. I can only imagine what Stu Hart wanted to do, especially after the I hate to say it, but the Owen Hart tragedy. So yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, didn't Vince also screw him out of the initial payment for Stampede?
Oh, something like that. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to give him $1 million, and he never paid him.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories out there like that you can, like the Karl Malone story, Bruce. Just start researching, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I had no idea about that.
Wait till you guys read that. And
guy now.
Yeah, it was a sad thing because I was a Mailman fan. He had Stockton. He had Stockton back in the early '90s. I mean. Stockton, you put the ball on the floor. He's stealing it or passing it. One of those two things is going to happen. It's crazy. He was unbelievable. And, the Mailman would not have the amount of points he has if it were not for John Stockton.
Right.
Apparently delivered a lot more than the mail, right?
Manny, you're on fire tonight. Gee.
So let's fast forward to January 5th, 1998, where Stone Cold Austin stuns virtually the entire Raw roster in preparation for the Royal Rumble a month later. Well, this was probably one of the first times Stone Cold that stunned everybody in the ring. It definitely wasn't the last time because anytime you were in the ring, you were going to get it one way or the other. Even if you were going to drink a beer with him, guess what? The second you finish that beer, you're getting a kick to the gut.
Well, this is this is January 5th, right? Yeah, January 6th, 98. Okay, so that was the road to WrestleMania. Because I went to WrestleMania 14, March of 98, where he won the title with Tyson and all that stuff and Shawn Michaels. So obviously Stone Cold. We are at the height of Stone Cold era right here. This is must-see TV, Monday Night Raw. What's Stone Cold going to do? Who's he going to stun? The list is endless. I mean, we should probably do a show on everybody that Stone Cold Steve Austin is stunned. Let's make a list, because if anybody was a guest star on Raw, they were stunned. They learned how to take that bump. They were gonna get stunned. There's no doubt about it.
Have you read the stories about The Rock taking the bump, and every time he wanted to do it a different way and more extravagant?
Oh, yeah.
More extravagant.
But you know what? It never got old. I don't care how many stunners the guy did. It never got old. We marked out every single time.
And I always think about it like, if you put anybody else other than Stone Cold to do that stunner, nobody could sell it. Nobody could do it. It has to be Stone Cold. So I can't see Mick Foley doing it. I can't see Shawn Michaels doing it. Like, just say, pre-Stone Cold era. Could anybody pull that off? No. Stone Cold was the only character to this day that could probably pull something like that off.
So do you realize there's so few characters that could walk in the door today and do exactly what they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and still get that same pop? And the list is few. What do you have? You have Hulk Hogan. You have The Rock. If anytime he walks into the arena and says anything, the crowd. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, I can't put Cena in that same bout because he doesn't always get the pop. Outside of those three, who else could you possibly put in that?
I couldn't. Big John Studd? I don't know.
Golden Terror.
Yeah, the Golden Terror. Or what do you call it?
We're talking so many years after these guys were relevant that they can still come back, and the fans chant the exact same thing.
But wasn't it 2 years ago, WrestleMania, Stone Cold came back and stunned everybody or whatever?
Yeah.
When they went to Dallas, AT&T Stadium.
The glass,
look at the pop he got then. That was insane.
Yeah, the glass breaks, the fans go nuts.
Yeah, the glass, yeah.
Do you
when
smell
you hear the
what
glass at your ass.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? The fans are going to pop. We're 20 years since these guys were relevant.
Yeah. That's because I think we're at that point. Well, we've been at that point where these were genuine stars in the making and were allowed to do what they could do at the height of what it was like lightning in a bottle. Now they're just constantly trying to manufacture this type of talent, and it's not working to the point where they have to put in fake crowd noises just to get the pops. You can't do it. I don't know what it is. It's a God-given thing, maybe. I don't know. You can't teach it. They're trying to manufacture it.
You can't manufacture emotion because, back in the day, Stone Cold was positioned as the anti-hero. He was a guy who flipped his boss off and assaulted it. I mean, how many of us wanted to do that, but we couldn't? But here is a guy who's doing it every week. Yeah. So we got invested in the guy. Now, I mean, there's really nothing. What can we get invested in?
It's nothing. It's too busy manufacturing. It's too much money. It's like
it's gymnastics,
and it becomes so watered down that if it does get over for one night, they're going to saturate the product and the media with it. And now with social media, this is the problem I think we're going to face with the returns of CM Punk and The Rock and all that stuff. If the WWE has this great momentum now going towards the Rumble, how are they going to up the ante? Now everyone's tuning in. They're probably watching SmackDown right now going, we want to see the next surprise. And the one time they don't get that surprise, the letdown happens. A case in point last night, Triple H was rumored to make this big announcement on Peacock last night regarding the WWE. No announcement came. The only thing that came out was a press release saying that NXT and Money in the Bank's going to be in Toronto. That was it. That was like a letdown. People were they were hyping it up. WWE Network, Peacock, everybody was hyping it up, and there was no announcement. So, I don't mean to get sidetracked with that, but I'm tuning in now, and I'm taping all these shows, and I want to see the reaction. I want to see, but if it doesn't happen, you've raised the bar again. Where do you go from there? You've had two major returns now in a month: CM Punk and The Rock. Where do you go from there? What happens now? If you're bringing back old talent to get everybody's attention again, I feel bad for the rosters because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you can't manufacture it.
But here's the problem, as I see it, is they're not fans anymore. Everybody we are wrestling fans,
right?
We watch wrestling with emotion. It mattered to us. These people, I don't want to say generalize, but the average fan who watches now, they don't consider themselves a fan. They consider themselves like an analyst because they have these opinions that they break down everything on Facebook and they get in these huge arguments. And we didn't approach it that way. Like when Bruno was in the ring, like my heart was in my throat. Like, damn, is Bruno going to lose tonight? Yeah. And people will never have that kind of emotion anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's a different era. I get it. It's a different generation. I've been around. Obviously, Benny, you've been around longer than me, wrestling fan wise. Bruce, you had a different era. I had a different era. I've gone from 1981 to now and seen the sport just change. Some for the good, some for the bad. Do I want to go back to the days of Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, listening to Jim McHugh announce my favorite wrestlers? Sure, I'd love that. But is the product a little bit better today? Sure, sports entertainment and all that stuff. My main thing is how are you going to keep everybody's attention span now? Because with these two huge comebacks between CM Punk and The Rock, where do you go from here? I know you're trying to hype up the Rumble and we're in WrestleMania season, but what happens after WrestleMania? We all going to be hung over from all this hoopla and craziness. Like, how do you repeat that? How do you keep that going? What's up Triple H's sleeve? Who's coming back? What are they going to do? Who are they going to sign? But going back to the main topic at hand, you can't manufacture the Stone Colds, the Rocks. These guys, it was lightning in a bottle.
Organic.
They were allowed to do what they could do. The Rock was, I still to this day do not see anybody on any roster anywhere throughout the world, maybe MJF, but not clearly as entertaining as The Rock was when he grabbed the mic, whether it was backstage. I mean, that backstage vignette, that 3-week stint with the Hurricane was unbelievable. That was magic. You took a B wrestler, Hurricane Shane Helms, and you put them in a locker room together. They created magic. That's lightning in a bottle. That stuff you don't see anymore. and they try to manufacture it, and it's like almost like watching paint dry. And I hate to say it, you want them to succeed, you just don't have it. You know what I mean? You guys understand where I'm coming with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does everybody out there in
so hey,
the
Benny,
chat understand where I'm
Hey,
coming
Benny,
from?
I see you interacting in the chat a little bit. What's going on in the chat?
Good point
go
by
ahead.
J.A. Will says that when you bring back old guys, that means you don't have the internal star power. And if
Right.
I was a WWE main eventer, I'd be upset that The Rock is needed to sell tickets. But,
Exactly.
obviously he is.
Yep. Maria chimes in. The WWEs are making the money they once did. A little confused on that one, Maria, because they are a marketing machine. If you're talking strictly on wrestling, probably not. But they have their hands in every single product that we're looking at. If you look around your room today, they have their hand in their product. Your product's there. But it's like I said, it's all part of. I mean, where is the next Rock going to come from? I mean, are we too busy thinking about who's going to be the next Rock? And can somebody come on their own? I feel bad for LA Knight. He's had a great past 6 months, but he's still being compared to Stone Cold because he's doing the thing, and we've heard it before with Stone Cold and with the what and all that stuff. So, new, fresh, and exciting is something that we need. I love the nostalgia. I love people coming back and so forth, but I just don't. You can't manufacture it. It's tough. I mean, there's got to be somebody out there. I think MJF may come close, but it is what it is with him. He's going to be out for a while. He's going to torn labrum. So I don't know, guys.
And I disagree with you on the MJF. MJF is a phenomenal on the mic. He just does not have the size. The guy is only 5'7", 5'8", 5'9". He's not big at all. When you see him stand next to John Cena, I think Cena's 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah.
He was so much smaller than him. He's going to end up being in that same boat as Johnny Gargano. Listen, Johnny Gargano, phenomenal wrestler. Guess what? You're irrelevant. They're all great athletes. You're irrelevant because you're so small compared to these other guys. I'm sorry WWE is always going to be the land of the big guys. We're only going to have so few Rey Mysterios out there. So
right. I grew up in that era too. Wrestlers were larger than life. And I'm not talking about Andre the Giant because he was larger than anybody. I'm talking when I saw a wrestler walking down the street, you knew he was a wrestler.
Yes.
You get a guy like Orange Cassidy. You even get somebody like Seth Rollins. You get somebody like Darby Allin. These guys walk down the streets. I don't know. Are they friends of my kids? I don't know. These guys don't have.
I saw Hook. I mean? Like when I saw Hook in person, oh my gosh! Sure. I'm like, all right, this guy is probably
that's Taz's son, by the way.
Yeah, he's probably an inch or two shorter than me. I'm not big. I'm 5'9", a little over 200 pounds. I'm not a small dude, not a huge dude. I dwarfed Hook.
It's all character based. Yep, it's all character based now,
which is great to a point. But let's make it realistic. Yeah. Listen, you can have a big mouth. That doesn't mean you're going to be a tough guy. I know plenty of tough little shits that get their ass kicked all the time. They just have that mouth and they're not afraid to get their ass kicked. Well, look at Spike Dudley. Spike Dudley kept putting himself out there. What was it? What was the Hardcore Holly, the little Holly? He put himself out there. Always got himself his ass kicked, knowing he's going to get his ass kicked by the big guys. That's what it was about.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's. I don't know. Go ahead, Benny.
No, there's a much larger issue here. And Joe, you how close did you live to the Boston Garden?
8 miles south. 8 miles.
How often did you go?
I went every month.
Right, every month, right? So you went at least 12 times.
First Saturday of every month. Boston
okay, there you go.
Wrestling.
And you went, and you couldn't wait till that next. Right?
You were chomping at the bit.
Did you feel like you had a personal connection with these guys because you were there every single month? You probably went to spot shows besides the Garden.
Cape Cod Coliseum, things like that. High school.
You might have went 20 times a year. Nowadays, how often are they in Boston?
They're not 3 times a month.
Wrestling has become totally. Is WWE making money? Hell yeah, but they're not making it. They're making it in different ways than I think it should be made. The way I think it should be made is, people like us buying tickets to go to see a match, but that's not even an option anymore for us. I mean, I'm about 25 miles from Tampa, Amalie Arena.
Yeah,
I go like once every 12 to 15 months.
Sure.
You don't really. I mean, it's so impersonal now, and I don't think wrestling was made to be impersonal.
No, absolutely. I look at my youth.
Go ahead.
I look at my youth. When I first started getting into wrestling, and it's one of the reasons I enjoyed it was very, very tangible. WWF taped every month in the Poughkeepsie Civic Center. So I didn't get to go every month, but every couple of months I got to go. And guess what? I got to watch weeks and weeks worth of matches getting filmed.
Right.
And it did. It made me feel part of it. And then, once I realized that one of the things for me was I got to see a Flower Shop episode filmed twice exactly the same. So I was like, oh my God, it really is scripted. And then I felt like, wow, they let me in on this little bit of a secret coming to this arena all the time. And
I agree. I mean, growing up, I mean, you talk about being invested. My Saturdays changed forever when I found wrestling. It's changed even more a year after when cable TV came around, because I can tell you from 9 to noontime every Saturday morning, it was WWF Wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling from Texas. And then from 6:05 to 8:05, it was Georgia Championship Wrestling, then World Championship.
And nothing short of a nuclear holocaust would have moved you from that TV set,
exactly.
Right?
And then, of course, if I went to wrestling that night, I was home in time to watch the old WOR repeats at midnight. Even though it was the same thing going, I just saw him wrestle live. And that was like a big deal. Now these guys are more than household names. They're on lunch boxes. They're on bottles. You see them in commercials and all that stuff. That I'm trying to think of the word, that I want to say nostalgia, but like you look forward to seeing these guys because you only did see them live once a month. But then again, you only did see them once a week on TV if they appeared. So you know what I mean? Like, so that element was that was there that you wanted to go see them. We are so saturated. And I did a What a Day podcast on this. We are so saturated with wrestling product now. If you were a true fan and watched every hour of every single wrestling promotion, you would have no job. You would have no life. You'd be in front of the TV or computer screen 7 days a week, because wrestling is really on 7 days a week at hours at a time. It's just too much.
It's different now. Like J.A. Will saying, Benny, you can book a show at the Fort Hesterly Armory, which the Homer Hesterly Armory in Tampa had a show every Tuesday night. So, I mean, if you were, I live about 20 miles. If I lived in Florida in 1979, I could have went 52 times a year and saw Kevin Sullivan, Superstar Billy Graham, Bugsy McGraw, Mike Graham, Bob Roop, you name it, Mark Lewin, Sullivan.
Yeah, but I mean, part of it was there was back then. If you didn't see it live, there was no other option, and I think a lot of organizations all of them are dropping it at this point. When you don't have something special to it, let's face it, you can see a rerun of absolutely anything on any YouTube site, anything like that. There's that specialness is lacking, and that's part of what I miss of it. It isn't. It's not personal anymore. It's global.
No, it's long distance.
Yeah, the chat's heating up too here. Joe Myers and Jay Will are having a conversation that Nia Jax can whip anybody on either roster, women's roster, and of course you can't invest in it. I think this is what Joe Myers is saying, talking to Jay. I can't buy it when they give her squash matches because you do not believe the match to be legitimate if she loses. She's a beast, and she means that in a good way. It's true. There's no investment. The squash matches, what are they called? The talent enhancement matches that we grew up with, the Frankie Williams and all those guys. They would have put over the talent to show them.
But now nobody wants to put over anybody.
Nobody wants to put over. It's all about me. What can I do? And I get it. And then when you do see a squash match, because AEW is famous for it now, Sky Blue, all those people, they're all in the ring. They're there. I think Mariah May made her debut against somebody, and that was pretty much almost like a squash match, even though the ending was a little off. But it's hard to invest in that when there's no story. We were watching wrestling the other night, and I'm watching AEW, and I'm sitting there going, none of this makes sense because they're just out there flying around the ring. There's no investment. There's no right. Why do you hate this person? What's going on here? It's whatever you can throw in on the TV, and if it catches someone's eye, they're going to watch it.
Wrestling has become Cirque du Soleil.
It really has. It's flipped immediately. You can hit a flip and a drop kick and all these things that. There's no build-up. It doesn't start off. We've talked about it before with a test of strength, or a simple headlock, and we're ranking it in there, or the things to build up. Gradually damage somebody to the point of where you can perform your finisher and put them out.
Yep. And that's where I feel the Bloodline is a great storyline. It's an actual story. The writing has been phenomenal. They need to keep it going. That gets me invested. But that's only one element of part of the show. I'm not going to watch all the other matches because I just want to watch the Bloodline. And if that's what's going to carry your show, then I'll just DVR everything and I'll shoot right to the Bloodline to forget everybody else.
Well,
so I get what you're saying with that. I just the chat's really lively tonight with everything going on here. So I want to thank everybody for chiming in. So I just feel that it's a generational thing. I think we grew up in a different era. Bruce grew up in a different era. Benny grew up in a different era. But there's one thing that we all have in common is that we invested our time, our emotional, and our mind and body to the product. Now I'll just flip on my phone and I heard there was a good match. You might not even be a wrestling fan or a sports entertainer fan. You watch the match because someone told me to watch the match. It's on my feed. It's on my Instagram feed. That's another thing now. They just throw everything on the Instagram and social media. So if you didn't see what happened, you're going to see what happened no matter what, because it's going to be on your feed. So
I think they should use these opportunities to build up and, use the social media to build towards those premium live events or build towards an event to make them to get that maximum impact at the moment. And I don't think that they're doing that. They're satisfied with it just trickling in over the course of the week. And I get it. They're getting the views. It may take a little bit more time and the ratings may be skewed, but I just think there's a lack of build towards anything nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I agree as well. One more quick thing, though. When the WWE network was in full swing before they moved everything over to the streaming platforms, they used to do live. They would have these live, almost like a live look-in. Let's go now to so-and-so arena, and we're going to watch Bayley wrestle somebody. That was cool because that was something like that would happen on a Saturday night, 10 o'clock. Let's look and see what that arena looks like or something like that. I would love if they could bring something like that back. Like they call them premium live events now, but those are just, almost like pay-per-views or whatever they're called now. My thing is they should have like a live look-in at a house show somewhere where something's going to take place. That would probably be something that worth looking into to get the fan invested.
Hey, listen, I have something I've been meaning to ask you guys because you guys were, when I was probably about 10, 11 years old, there was a wrestling show that came on. I believe it was on locally. It was on PIX. So WPIX, Benny might be familiar with that. But it was Gordon Soley and somebody else would host like wrestling news. And then they would go back and they would talk about Georgia Championship Wrestling or the UWF or the NWA.
Was that Joe Pedicino?
I'm just trying I'm trying to remember the show. I was so young, I can't quite.
And there was a Bonnie Blackstone, I think.
Was that like early 80s? Was that early 80s?
It was definitely early 80s.
Yeah, I think I remember that because when Universal UWF was only around in the early 80s, right? JR was an announcer.
Yeah, to the I think 87 when they combined with NWA with Dr. Death.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, what are you trying to get at, Bruce?
No, I just wanted to. I was trying to. I just had this in my head. I'm trying to remember if it was real or not, or what it was. And
it was real.
And especially that was like my introduction to Gordon Soley. We were talking about him a little while ago, and with Jim Ross and stuff. But I've been meaning to ask you guys that because it's one of those things that I can kind of remember but can't quite remember.
Right. No, I do vaguely recall that PIX, but I think that was syndicated, right, Benny?
I believe
PIX,
so.
PIX probably just picked it up and they just threw it.
They just.
Don't forget the cable boom was taking place in the early 80s too. So if I missed something on Championship Wrestling and I didn't tape it at 10 o'clock in the morning, I can go to WOR at midnight that night, the New York affiliate, and they would show the same card again, just with the New York interviews and so forth. So I could always see what happened. So that might have been like a syndicated thing.
So
cool stuff.
Yeah. So listen, I think it's Benny's turn again.
It is, yes. So January 6, 1983 in San Juan, Puerto Rico, World Wrestling Council champion Carlos Colon, who is Carlito's dad, defeats NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair in a non-title champion versus champion match. They did in WWC in Puerto Rico, they did a lot of this kind of stuff where, here in the States, you'd have Backlund versus a Bockwinkel or Backlund versus a Flair. Or even a Graham, I think. Was Graham versus Harley Race? after Billy won the WWF title. But the title never changed hands. It was always some kind of Broadway or something like that, where like in Puerto Rico, they would actually have, like Flair would lose clean to Colon. And I think that was pretty cool thing.
That champion versus champion, I remember first reading about it in a magazine. What was it, 83, 84, 82? Backlund Flair, Georgia Atlanta Omni, Scrappy McGowan, the referee. I think it was 82. And I was like, wow, the NWA champion versus the WWF champion. And I'm like, wow, that's something. But that ended at like a double count out or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, now we know that like there was no way either one of them was going to win.
No, I get that. So, but that's before, pre-Hogan, territory days and all that stuff. So, Puerto Rico, I used to watch the old videos of that. I mean, Abdullah the Butcher would scare the living hell out of me. And his matches with Carlos Colon, the bloodbaths that they would have, and the forks and the spoons and the knives. And I'm like, this is sick.
They were both registered at like Saks Fifth Avenue.
Abdullah was my nightmare as a little kid.
He used to stick quarters in his scalp, in his forehead.
And I've met him as an adult, and I mean now I know him, and he's a funny individual. He's actually such a cool dude. He's hilarious. I think but I don't know if he would have ever gotten over if he had to use his own voice. He's got that little bit of a high-pitched voice.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, he can talk. He's got that jive to him, and he's such a hilarious man to be around.
Bruce, that brings me to a thing you just said, a wrestler that would scare you as a kid. Back at the old Boston Garden, the wrestlers had like a 20-foot window where they had to walk through fans to get to the locker room. And if you got there early enough, you were there to pat the wrestler on the back. One guy scared the living crap out of me, and it was Killer Khan. I know he just passed away. These guys would not. They would not break kayfabe. Once that door opened, he would fly through that crowd. He would scare the living piss out of you because he didn't want nobody to touch you. He was just. But then when Morocco came in, I loved Morocco, and I was patting him on the back. He took a swing at me because I was, patting him on the back too much. But he didn't scare me like Killer Khan did. Killer Khan was fighting Andre the Giant that night in a stretcher match, and everybody wanted a piece of this guy, so he had to play the role to get through the crowd. It was only a 20-foot window that they had to get through, but security wasn't like it was back then. But Killer Khan scared the living crap out of me when I was a kid. When he would come into the garden,
that's a subject we have to do one day. Is the greatest mist spitters ever? Killer Khan's got to be up there. The Kabuki,
George the Animal Steel.
Yeah, there's
George
a lot of
the
them.
Animal.
A lot of them.
I seen him, George the Animal Steel. I remember watching him at the Garden. He would scare people at ringside. Yeah. He'd go after people at ringside. They'd run. I'd be sitting in the balcony and I'd see like 35 people moving out of the way. Like, what happened there? Like, oh, George the Animal Steel's in the ring. Oh, I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
he's running after Gary Capetta all the time too.
Yeah, wasn't it Jimmy Snuka used to eat his flour, his lapel or whatever, all that stuff? My God, yeah. Little Patty says Mick Foley as Mankind scared the crap out of her.
He was pretty scary.
He was. Ooh, Jay Will with the Mongolian Stopper and Pack Song. There's some names.
That's some good stuff.
That's some good stuff there.
Archie Goldie.
Yeah, no kidding. I've always wanted to see the Mongolian Stomper.
Jay Will saying Pack Song. When I first saw him, I think it was probably like in the late 70s in CWF, Florida. And he was a scary looking guy. I mean, big guy, and I think he used a stomach claw, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. But yeah, very scary.
Beth Hopper chimed in and said she was expecting that major announcement for Triple H, and it was nothing. I agree. Yep. Go ahead. And Jay Will said Brew Bernard was scary as a kid. He was on a card at a high school gymnasium, and it looks like he did his job there.
I imagine Ox Baker scared the shit out of a lot of people
he would be. Maybe Mad Dog Vachon.
Same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, who I used to be scared of, and only on TV when he was rocking and rolling against Von Erichs was Wild Bill Irwin.
Yeah.
He was, and that leads me right to Bruiser Brody.
Yep.
Bruiser Brody was a monster.
The Barbarian, same thing. He came through. He would, swing.
God, he was huge. Barbarian was huge. And didn't he tag team with the Warlord, something like that?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Powers of Pain.
Powers, yeah, that's it. That was
even going back a few years, Killer Kowalski. I mean, and the guy legitimately tore somebody's ear off.
Yeah,
man. Will
says that Dusty Rhodes turned good against Pak Song. He did use the stomach claw.
Okay.
What an active chat today. Listen, I got to say, everybody, thank you. That's crazy, the amount of
you guys are
the
great.
interaction
Thank
we've
you.
had. This is crazy. That's what we
Maria
wanted.
says she would not. Maria says she will not eat anything at Abdullah the Butcher's restaurant.
Beth Harper says, I want some of Playa. Damn.
Wait, I didn't see that one. Where's that at?
No, that's there. I see it. Oh man, Ox Baker, bad ring work, great heel.
Oh yeah, Killer Carl Cox. I got a great photo of Killer Kowalski at the old Garden. You know, looking down the rope. He was a menace to be reckoned with back in the 60s and 70s.
Then you got a guy like Bugsy McGraw, who maybe wasn't really scary per se, but he was crazy enough that, like, you wonder, like, is this guy legit crazy? I mean,
probably
so many of them.
It could be. That's like the sheep herders. They were crazy,
right?
Yeah.
Before they were the bushwhackers. I mean,
the sheep
they
herders
were pretty scary.
Yep.
Yeah,
they got all circused out when they went to WWE. So.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Thank you. That's a funny story from them because I was a kid watching them in like the UWF, NWA, bloody matches, beating the crap out of each other. And then a year later, I'm watching them going, whoa, hey, and looking at each other's armpits in Raw, or in WWE.
Sardines,
it's like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, the Kiwi Sheep Herders were like one of the most vicious tag teams ever, and was a Southwest Championship Wrestling.
So Loose Cannon, Yokozuna kayfabe me when it was just me in the ring, him in the hallway when he was 12. That might have been a sight, huh? Yokozuna? Jesus.
Oh, jeez.
My God. All these guys, all these names. They take you right back, though, right? One name brings you right back. Unbelievable.
Well, it's Wrestling Remembered. We're all remembering wrestling.
Yeah, no kidding. Huh?
Definitely. And so it looks like, hey, Joe, looks like you're up again.
All right, here we go. January 6th, 1995, Birmingham, Alabama. By the way, Charlotte Flair had her surgery in Birmingham. Macho Man Randy Savage makes his in-ring WCW debut, defeating Avalanche. Savage left the WWF previously because he was deemed too old to be an active wrestler. Savage wanted to work a program with Shawn Michaels where Savage would culminate the feud by passing the torch. Interesting stuff there. Randy Macho Man Savage going to WCW. Immediately, they wanted to reunite the Mega Powers. And I do believe a week before or so, he showed up in WCW, had an interview talking about everything's a love-hate relationship with Hogan and all that stuff. So what happened was on WCW Saturday night, there was a match, Hogan and somebody else. He actually had to save Hulk Hogan. The whole thing culminated with a handshake. And, of course, they reunited the Mega Powers. To me, this is another strong point of WCW poaching WWE talent and trying to replicate what Vince McMahon had already done, obviously reuniting the Mega Powers and so forth. So that's pretty much I have on all that. I mean, that was his in-ring debut at that time, but he was actually on TV a couple of times before that at WCW Saturday Night Main Event, and that, of course, that other interview he had. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is just another Bischoff's thing of just trying to poach Vince McMahon's ideas, reuniting the Mega Powers?
I tell you what, though, I remember, and this was very unusual, that when Savage left, McMahon actually went when he was still an announcer. But I mean, by that point, you kind of knew he owned the company. But he actually wished him luck. Yeah. He said his contract expired, and you think about it, 1995, Savage would have been maybe, 42, 43?
Somewhere around there,
in incredible shape. And, I mean, can you imagine? That would have been a hell of a program between him and Shawn Michaels. I really think Vince Jr. missed the boat here. I think they could have kept him. I mean, Randy was still in incredible shape. The guy was always a phenomenal worker.
He's a great athlete, ball player, everything. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think they blew this one.
Absolutely.
Bruce, what do you think?
I think Macho Man Savage could have been in the ring until the day he died with the shape the guy was in. At 42 years old, let's face it, the current WWE champion is older than 42 years old. So, or Universal champion. He could have definitely handled it. Macho Man, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I definitely think WCW could have done more with him. But let's not forget that he probably would have had a job forever with WWF if he wouldn't have slept with Stephanie.
Yep. No, that's
Jay makes a very good comment. Man, Macho was too heavy in the mid '90s. So, like for a while, I mean, when he was in WWF, very good physique, not too big, but obviously very muscular. He got to a point where like I think he was too jacked. He lost a lot of his mobility. I will agree with Jay's comment.
Yeah, my favorite moment Macho Man was February '84 against Tito Santana. He won the title with Miss Elizabeth, and that was a big deal back then because the Boston Garden never had a title change, and that night was pretty special. The cameras were there and all that stuff. So he was a great wrestler. And don't forget, the WWF rings back then were huge. They were like 20 by 20 by 20. They were big rings, and they were 4 or 5 feet off the floor. There was no padding around the ring and all that stuff. These guys took a bump, and Macho Man was great at it. So, he would sacrifice his body, so he was in great shape, no doubt about it.
Unfortunately,
my favorite.
Go ahead, Benny.
Yeah, my favorite Macho moment, believe it or not, was when he attacked Ricky Steamboat with the timekeeper's bell.
Yes,
and then that wasn't it. It was the interview backstage with Bruno. And Bruno called him you piece of slime, and he started choking Macho. And I remember Corporal Kirchner was there, and a couple of the other baby faces had to pull Bruno. And I guess that was about 86, 87?
Yeah, that'd be 86. No, it got to be 87. WrestleMania 3, most pinfalls ever in a match. That was match of the year. So, I mean, outside of Hogan and Andre, that was match of the year, no doubt about it. Steamboat versus Randy Savage.
Bruno's indignation. I mean, I don't think Bruno gets enough credit. I mean, obviously, to me, he's the greatest of all time. But even as an announcer, that was great.
Oh yeah, it was good. That's good stuff there.
Unfortunately, I don't remember it. But back in the day, my father reminds me that we actually got to see the debut of Randy Savage when he at the Civic Center when he introduced Elizabeth, and all the other managers were coming in trying to claim him, and then they used that angle a few years later with Paul Orndorff and Oliver Humperdinck. But the original one was that one with Elizabeth in there. I can't remember it though, but I know I was there.
I remember it. Luscious Jimmy Valiant, the captain, Fred Blassie was there. Slick was in the ring. He brought out all the managers, and they all tried to get his services. And then they opened up that side door, and
the yellow door.
And Miss Elizabeth walks out, spotlight, sequin gown, and we're like, "What is going on here?" And that was it. They were that was his manager. That was a big deal back then. That was a huge deal, because you never saw all the managers in the ring at the same time. I think Lord Alfred Hayes was even in the ring. Like they had everybody. They put they slammed the ring to make it look like who is he going to pick? Who is he going to pick? And neither of you is. It's coming through the door now. And it was Miss Elizabeth. So Bruce, they taped that at Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, they taped that in Poughkeepsie. And I believe the actual Macho Man's debut was the month before, but I didn't. I wasn't there for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, I wish I could remember that. The first one I can remember being there for was when Hogan turned on, or when Orndorff turned on Hogan, which was about a year and a half, 2 years later.
Oh yeah.
That was a great moment.
I don't mean to skip around, but my favorite Paul Orndorff segment was on Saturday Night's Main Event when right after WrestleMania when Piper and them turned on him, and he was on Piper's Pit at the New Jersey Meadowlands. He was like telling Piper to sit. And he turned to Bob Orton and goes, stay, sit, stay, sit, stay. It was funny seeing Orndorff scream like that. Great guy. I shared a slice of pizza with him one time at outside the Boston Garden. He was a great guy. He was a coach. Yes. He liked to talk to the fans and all that stuff. And we actually went to a pizza restaurant, and he sat down. He was a great guy. I talked to his son Travis about it, and he goes,
"That's a really good guy too."
Yeah, he goes, my dad was always like that. I was like 15 years old. He was just telling me stay in school, not the whole Hogan vibe, but just like stay in school, get in sports, be good. I mean, Orndorff was a great worker. I know he was a heel and all that stuff, but outside the ring, great guy.
Very, very.
Bought me a slice of pizza, and the guy was built like a brick shit house. Man. This guy, oh my god! Before his car accident, this guy was huge. He was a good guy. He was from Tampa, right?
Yes,
Benny?
sir. Yep. He was.
Stuff.
Brandon, actually, which is very close.
Ja Will's in there. Oliver Humperdinck was a great manager. So was Percy Pringle.
Oh, yeah.
Percy Pringle. Paul Bearer himself.
Paul Bearer, yeah.
And he used to pass by Paul Orndorff's old bowling alley going to the gym each morning. Okay, cool.
That was somewhere. I think Fayetteville, Georgia I believe was the bowling
Oh, really?
alley.
Yeah. Paul Ono was one of the first guys I saw on Georgia Championship Wrestling. I think he was the national heavyweight champion at the time. I saw him. I was like, oh, this guy, he had the looks and he had the build and all that stuff. So pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maria's chiming in. When I found out it was scripted, I couldn't believe it. I don't know what she's pertaining to, or is she talking in general?
Probably in general. Yeah.
All right, let's fast forward into 2014. WWE airs an old school version of WWE Monday Night Raw. This episode sees the return of the enigmatic Jake the Snake Roberts. Roberts was denied his wish to participate in the Royal Rumble, but was introduced into the WWE Hall of Fame several months later by Diamond Dallas Page, who Roberts claimed credits for saving his life. Jake does owe Diamond Dallas Page a bit of gratitude, and there's a lot of wrestlers who do. Diamond Dallas Page is actually a really good man with what he does for these guys. Doesn't charge them anything, and really does try to help these people, and not just wrestlers, but other people to improve their lives. DDP Yoga is actually pretty a great idea that he came up with. You realize that guy's, what is he, 66, 67 now? And look at the shape he's in. He's ridiculous.
It works.
Let's talk about him from the beginning. I mean, he didn't become a champion until he was in his mid-40s. Yeah, he really
didn't even start wrestling until he was 36.
Yeah, he came in the game late. He
was a manager for Bad Company, Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And then he had the Scott Hall over in WCW.
Yep. DDP is behind the scenes. He's a very, very motivational. I mean, he's picked up so many wrestlers. I mean, we hear about the Jake Robertson, the Mick Foleys, and all that stuff, but he's helped a lot more people than that. He's just been I was friends with him when I was on Twitter. We used to talk all the time. DDP Yoga, him, great guy. He came to a local news station and did the DDP Yoga thing on a Fox affiliate. Just an enigmatic guy. And I think part of his story was that he started late, but his goal was to make as much money in the shortest amount of time.
Right.
And I think he accomplished that because I think within a couple of years, he was WCW champion. The Diamond Cutter was huge. Everything was, he was on fire.
So, but then let's take a look at the other side of the question, which was Jake the Snake Roberts. What do you think if Jake the Snake had gotten involved in the Royal Rumble in 2014? I don't think that would have been too good of an idea.
It sounds like a great idea if we get the 1985 Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah, we need a Legends Royal Rumble, not a real Royal Rumble.
We don't want the Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah, you're talking about almost a 60-year-old guy who is like really not in very good shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad. I mean, he's lived the life that he's lived. It's unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad he's doing better now and all that stuff. But yeah, 2014. I think he was. Yeah, I don't know about that, Bruce. I don't know. That's probably why he wasn't in the Royal Rumble. They probably knew, Yeah,
J.A. Will with a very, very good comment. Flexibility is one of the great things to have as you get older. And I've done DDPY for the past 4 years, and I can absolutely unequivocally state that it is great for your flexibility.
Can you put your leg behind your head?
It all depends who's with me.
Well, it depends what she's in. This depends what she's into.
Right, exactly. There you go.
Yep, I hear you. Oh my God, that's
so crazy. Betty, why don't you take us on to this next one and let's get away from this topic.
Yeah, flexibility. All right, so January 7th, 1966, St. Louis, Missouri, Gene Kiniski defeats Lou Thez to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Kiniski would hold the title for the next 3 years before he lost it to Dory Funk Jr. So, something to note, like everybody's making a huge deal out of Reigns holding the title for, 3.5 years now. But, a guy like Gene Kiniski, who most younger fans probably don't even know who he is. But here's a guy who held the title for about 3.5 years, probably defended it 500 times. What's Reigns defended it like 11 times this year?
Oh yeah.
Title changes back then when you had the NWA or even in the WWF, a title did not change hands. It meant something. Yeah. It was significant. I mean, now you got, Jinder Mahal held the title for 6 months, for God's sakes.
Well, the NWA is the oldest territory. It's probably the most storied and historic wrestling alliance. So, yeah, they took pride in that.
Yeah, you didn't, Kiniski held it for 3 years. He lost to Dory Funk. Dory Funk held it for almost 5 years.
And I'll be honest with you, reading the wrestling magazines, it took me a long time to pronounce Gene Kiniski. I used to say Kaninsky, Kaczynski.
I always still say Kaninsky.
Maybe I.
Well, I couldn't pronounce unequivocally either. So a couple of minutes ago, so you guys
don't call him Kaczynski,
right? And then his son Kelly, I believe in WWF for a while or WWF.
Yep. Yeah, he did something with them.
Yep. Definitely did not have the same success as his father, though.
No, he did not. But the NWA prided themselves. NWA title meant something. It again, it put butts in seats because if the NWA title was coming through your town, you made sure you wanted to go see the champ and all that stuff. So there's no doubt about it.
But he's very unheralded. The problem is that we don't really our history goes back as far as we do typically.
Right.
And, somebody who was born in 1990, they're not going to know that Gene Kiniski won the title. And the guy even won for a while, he won the AWA. He held the
that's right. Yeah.
AWA championship. I think he beat Vern for it, either Vern or Mad Dog. One of the, so, you won the championship in two out of the 3 big territories, that's a big deal.
Yep. Jay Will says that Luthea's made a ton of money too. He was one of the highest paid athletes in his prime. Good stuff there.
Yeah, Luther has always got a percentage of the gate. He was a smart guy.
Yep. And those guys back then, that's how it was brokered, right? You made that. It wasn't like the promoter just paid you. They made sure that was part of the deal, right?
And Bronco Nagurski he was another one. He was a football player too.
Yep. And I am hip on my favorite football player names. Nice. All right, looks like I'm up, right?
All right, Joe.
January 7th, 2002, Triple H makes his return to Madison Square Garden after a 9-month layoff due to injury. Although he went on the shelf as a heel, he returned as a babyface, as we now know is one of the largest crowd reactions in Raw history. I remember watching this. I remember months before being involved in that 6-man tag match. I just found out that he was on a podcast years ago. Triple H recalled the incident during a podcast, so believe it or not, with Chris Jericho. His former nemesis expressed shock at the fact that Triple H actually suffered the injury, but still came back in the ring with the sledgehammer to complete the match.
Yeah.
The game Triple H recalled how awful the injury was, so much so that he couldn't even put weight on his leg, that we all know that. The pain was another matter unto itself. The Walls of Jericho spot almost made him regret the whole thing entirely. Triple H, no doubt. The game was born, that whole thing, spitting the water in the air, the big jacket, Motorhead coming out to Motorhead, time to play the game. I remember all that. That was like a dawning of that was his rebranding, so to speak. Don't you think, Benny?
I remember watching that. What a pop. It's one of the largest crowd pops I ever heard.
Yeah. And it made me look forward every week when Triple H came out. I wanted to see him put that spotlight on him and spit the water in the air.
I remember how big he came back, because if you remember in that match, he couldn't move as well as he used to. And that was the first thing I noticed. The guy, he was bigger than ever, but he was having trouble maneuvering around the ring. Sure. And he quickly lost a lot of that extra bulk and probably was in the best shape of his life at that point.
Yep, definitely. I agree. He came back huge. And I think it was shortly thereafter, didn't the Shawn Michaels feud ignite again? Did they hook up with that Hell in the Cell and all that stuff? Memory serves me right.
No, I believe you're right.
You might be right.
His career. He went from what Hunter Hearst Helmsley to Triple H.
Yep.
Before that was in WCW, Terrorizing.
Paul Levesque.
This guy's evolved with the business.
Terrorizing, yeah,
Terrorizing. He's been such an asset to WWE, and say what you want with him and Stephanie and all that stuff, and but look at him now. Triple H is what I would probably go say second in command, really.
Oh yeah.
With Endeavor and TKO and all that stuff in WWE. Look at the product he's putting out now. So to have Triple H in your corner is huge. There's no doubt about it.
Beth Harper saying Abdullah scared me, and I would say that most of my blind dates scared me.
There you go. Well, the chat's wicked active tonight.
Yeah,
Look at this. Huh?
Yeah, great chat. We got a lot. Got
They
some
hung
new
with us for almost 2 hours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we've got some new listeners here too. It's great job.
Yeah, El Dirtbag just happened to stumble on the stream. Very nostalgic. He remembers seeing Macho Man beat Tito Santana for the IC title on USA Network on Monday night.
That was prime time wrestling.
Yeah, that pushed Danny Davis to Corrupt Angle years later. That's right. Good day. Thanks for tuning in, Dirtbag. I love the name. I love the scream name.
LB
yeah, Will. Kane had match in WCW as it was actually Bruiser Mastino. But yeah, he was kind of an enhancement. And then, comes here and he's Kane and the rest is history.
Well, I think Maria's sipping on the wine. Yeah, Abdullah was forking and spooning the wrestlers.
I don't want to know about his spooning with any wrestlers. I don't want to know Abdullah and spooning wrestlers. I don't want to know. Sorry.
And she has a typo, so I think she's in the wine already. She's good.
That's all right. Somebody else that used to be on Monty's show, she was known for indulging in wine.
Indulging.
But no comparison to Maria. Maria is actually a very nice lady.
There you go.
Well, listen,
thank you everybody for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it.
I'll play that. I'll play that as we go out because I just happen to have that. Where are they now with that person that Benny was referring to?
Oh, okay.
I'll play that as on the outro.
We're petrified, right?
At first, I was afraid.
At first, I was afraid. I was petrified.
Who sang that song? Where Are You Now? What was the song? No, not Benny. No.
It was Benny Mardones?
No. Where Are You Now? It was an 80s song. Oh, man. Somewhere in... Oh, I forget. I'm dating myself now.
Abdullah, John Will has... Abdullah is spooning with Moolah. I could see that.
Baby Cakes. What song was that? Who sang that song? Where Are You Now? There was somebody all alone. She'll know what I'm talking about. Maybe she'll Google it for me.
All right.
I forget what it was.
Let's fast forward to 2008 in Unionville, Connecticut. WWE
Uncasville, Mohegan Sun, baby.
Mohegan Sun.
All right, WWE Monday Night Raw sees all matches determined by the spin of a wheel, and some of the matches were Strange Bedfellows, Trading Places, Steel Cage, First Blood.
Wow.
And a lingerie pillow fight. Well,
all right. Tell me who's in the lingerie pillow fight, real quick. Come on.
I couldn't tell you because I can tell you. 2008.
Tori Wilson has got to be one of them, right?
Yeah,
Tori Wilson, Steve Keebler.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be my. Those were the two that came to mind.
The one thing I can say about this point is I think the three of us were disengaged from wrestling. It was not a product for us. It wasn't geared towards us, and as a result, I don't think they had us watching.
One of the trading places was Billy Ray Valentine against Louis Winthorpe III.
The Strange Bedfellows, was that something with Matt Hardy and Lita and Edge and that debauchery?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Will, don't forget Jimmy Carter's favorite wrestler was Mr. Wrestling number 2. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, listen, that last comment, that last segment was absolutely horrible, and well, hopefully we'll close out on some better ones next week. But
well, I can tell you, it was Jimmy Harmon that sang the song "Where Are You Now." That's who it was.
Was he a one-hit wonder?
Yeah, 1989, I do believe it is. Yeah,
that one escapes me.
It's a one-hit wonder, so no wonder I didn't remember it.
So listen, guys, we're coming towards the end of the show, and I know we've got some really cool upcoming stuff. Hey, Benny, why don't you tell us what's going on Dan and Benny in the Ring, and the 30, and some of the other stuff you got going on.
All right, so next Tuesday on Dan and Benny in the Ring, we have author Ian Douglas. Ian Douglas has written a number of wrestling books. My favorite was the book he wrote about Bugsy McGraw. Just a good guy and a great writer. We got, and next week, at some point next week, we're going to do the true crime about Whitey Bulger. Joe and I are going to do another Line Drive baseball podcast, hopefully next week.
Deep drive, way back.
That's right. And then, as usual, the 30 on Thursday night.
Awesome.
Until he runs us out of town. We'll keep doing this.
So, Joe, so what do you have to plug this week?
Jesus, you name it. Money in the Pharaoh. Money in the Pharaoh.
How about a new Patreon account just to fund those new furnaces? Because I know they're not cheap nowadays. Man.
Oh my God, crazy! Yeah, we had no heat for a week, but thank God we finally got everything up and running just in time for 30 last night. So that was always good. Yeah, true crime. We're going to be chiming in on that with Benny and Brittany Fox. Brittany, right? Is that her name? Brittany Fox. Brittany Brown. Excuse
Boston
me.
Bad Girl.
Jeez, I got the 80s stuff on my mind now. Yeah, we're going to be chiming in with the Whitey Bulger stuff there. What a Day in Centerville returns live this Wednesday. Of course, I'll be on to 30. New segment, by the way, will be coming up soon on the 30. Stay tuned for that special announcement and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff going on. Line Drive Baseball Podcast. So, we'll be around. Money in the Pharaohs family's growing. A lot of viewers chiming in. Subscribership's growing up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Greatly appreciated. The chat's been lively and all that stuff. And, don't forget to subscribe, share the channel. Let everybody know that Money in the Pharaoh and the family is growing. This channel is growing, folks. They're slowly coming back to where they were before.
Not slowly. We are gaining momentum.
We're gaining momentum, right? And Wrestling Remembered, we're going to be, we'll be back here next week with another awesome episode.
Hey, speaking of that, how did I want to get a kind of the feedback from the fans out there. How did they like having us on the Friday? It seemed like we're getting a lot more reaction and interaction on a Friday night live show versus the Thursday and the Tuesday. Just trying to figure out what the best time to come on with you guys is.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun on Friday night. You got to be honest.
Yeah. Dirtbag, Joel, Maria Davis, Joe Myers, everybody chime in. When do you like it on Friday night? You like this conversation? Let us know.
Yes, I know it's a great alternative to SmackDown, but
J.A. Will knows his wrestling stuff. Professor Tanaka was actually Hawaiian. His name was Charlie Kalani. He actually served in the United States Army. Great guy.
Yeah. And El Dirtbag said, rest in peace, Killer Khan, who broke Andre the Giant's leg. Wink, wink. Real quick on that. We all know it was kayfabe and all that stuff. Andre broke his ankle getting out of bed one day. I did not know this until probably about 20 years ago that he had a surgery, and all those pictures of him in the hospital were from Massachusetts General Hospital.
Wow.
That was the only hospital in the entire United States, and this is a true story, Vince McMahon can back us up on this, that was allowed to give him enough pain medication and anesthesia to put him under. He needed horse tranquilizers and everything to get this guy under, to get him knocked out. And Mass General, believe it or not, at the time, we're going back to 1981, was the only hospital in the United States that was allowed to administer that much pain medication for Andre the Giant. So there's a little tidbit for you.
Awesome. Well, listen,
Friday is fun for us. So go for it.
Yeah,
okay.
Friday's good.
So we'll get together. We'll talk about this and see if we can set this up to make it happen again. But as always, listen, guys.
Patty likes it.
I can tell you, it's always a pleasure talking to you guys. We go for an hour. We start talking for an hour and we end up at 2 every time. So it's been great, man. Joe, great talking to you. Benny, it's been great talking to you. Listen, Chat room, it's been awesome. You guys were absolutely amazing tonight. It's been unbelievable, the interactions we've had in there, and please keep it up. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and listen.
Hit that like button.
I'm going to play that Where Are They Now one more time as we're getting out of here.
Where are they?
And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, guys. Later.
What a day. What a day.
From the pages of Wrestling Remembered comes Where Are They Now? Our own Jimmy Farrow. Even though Jimmy's missing in action from the show for the past couple months, his chair is just waiting for his return. Currently, Farrow is on break from the show and is soaking up the sun with his love in Florida. Ron Shaw. Last we saw Ron, he and Monty buried the hatchet on an episode of Monty and the Pharaoh. Since then, Ron was seen threatening to punch a director after not receiving a role on the senior edition of The Jersey Shore. Currently, he can be seen beating up drunks at his country club. John Cena Sr. John Cena Sr. quickly became a friend of the show during the Thursday Night Wars. Currently, Mr. Cena can be found making his world-famous hot sauce. Daniela Petro. Former co-host Daniela was terminated for breaking the code of conduct of Monty and the Pharaoh and has returned to a life of irrelevance and posting about Matt Riddle on X.com. That's all for this week. Make sure to check out Wrestling Remembered for your weekly dose of wrestling history.